it's Joe Pardaville. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Forbes Books podcast. And today we're going to be talking about chess. The history of chess is a complicated one. Early forms of the game originated in India around the 6th century, and by the 10th century made its way to Europe. Fast forward to the 1800s, chess underwent various rule changes and became the competitive sport we know it today. The first official World Chess Championship was hosted in 1886, and 134 years later, chess went viral. First, the pandemic sparked interest in chess. More and more lockdown families around the globe began buying up boards and playing chess. COVID also drove hundreds of thousands of others to play chess online. And then Netflix, of all people, put it over the top. The release of their giant hit, The Queen's Gambit, was followed by a massive surge of interest in the game. These days, thousands of Americans spend their day playing chess in parks around the country. But did you know that one lifelong chess player transformed his hometown into the chess capital of the United States? No, it's not New York or Chicago, but St. Louis. His name is Rex Sinquefield, and in a previous life, he pioneered the first index funds, the investment vehicles that track financial assets like the S&P 500. In 2008, the retired multimillionaire founded the St. Louis Chess Club and then provided funding to move the World Chess Hall of Fame to St. Louis. The chess pioneer is now being recognized for all his accomplishments by being inducted into the U.S. Chess Hall of Fame along with his wife, Jean. And I'm so lucky to have him join me today on the podcast. Rex, how are you?
I am fine. Thank you very much.
I have to start by congratulating you for your induction into the Chess Hall of Fame. And so my first question is, what took them so long to get you into the Chess Hall of Fame?
Oh, my goodness. My reaction is just the opposite. I'm actually thinking of saying to them, a la Bob Uecker, hey, guys, I really thought I should have gone in as a player.
That's true. Unfortunately, I guess you didn't build up enough of a career track record for that, but I guess this is the next best case, right?
It is the next best case. It's far from the correct case, but next best.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I guess, unfortunately, Rex, as you know, we can't have a conversation about chess these days without talking about the Queen's Gambit. So
right.
Without getting too into it, I have to say your life resembles a lot about the main character's life. Not the fact that you won world championships like the character did, but the fact that you didn't have the easiest upbringing to get to where you are. And a lot of the similarities is you and the main character both grew up in an orphanage, right?
That is true. That first scene was very moving for me because the emotions that created about a young child, she was 9 in the movie, I was 7 in real life, going into that situation was just a powerfully emotional experience, and they captured it very, very well.
And when you heard about the Queen's Gambit television series, had you read the book or were you familiar with the story?
I was not, neither.
And so when the show drops on Netflix, as you probably know, as the kids say, it went viral. It was super successful. When did you find out about it? And then what did you think when you actually saw it?
Well, when I saw it, partway into the first episode, I was sort of hooked. I said, this is really good.
And did they, as a chess expert, I can call you that, did you feel like they captured the sport and the essence of it?
Oh, my goodness. It was amazingly accurate. All these tournaments around the country, those were so accurate. And I played in a lot of those in my youth. And the whole setup, going in, signing up, playing, signing out, leaving your sheets behind, it was all just done perfectly well.
And so the Rex story, though, similar to the main character, you were growing up most of your adolescence in an orphanage. Is that where you fell in love with chess as well?
Well, I was very intrigued by chess there, but I didn't learn until I got out after 8th grade. And my Uncle Fred taught me, and the second game we played, I won. Always felt a little guilty about that.
And so, Rex, I'll be completely honest with you. I've always been intimidated by the game of chess because every time I meet someone who plays chess or when you watch on TV, see these stories, read about it, it's always these really, really, really smart people. And so it intimidated me. And I still haven't really got into it just because I feel like I don't need another reason for someone to show me that I'm not very bright. So when you first learned about it, was there any kind of intimidation there, or was your uncle like really good at showing you the steps?
There was no intimidation. I was just so intrigued by the game, and I started playing high school friends, and it turned out that we were sort of equal at the beginning. So There was no time for the intimidation factor to set in. And you shouldn't feel that way because most players aren't that great. You got the club players, they're good for
Right.
sure. People who just play in a park and never play in a club, never play on a team, they're not that great.
So you're saying I should just stay away from the club players and just play with the regular regular players?
Sure.
Talk to me about, because it's sort of like a businessy podcast, so talk to me about how your chess brain ended up translating into your success with your business side of your brain.
Oh boy, I don't know about that. I mean, the ideas for business came straight out of the University of Chicago when I got these insights in the early 1970s about how markets work. I remember saying, that's what I want to work on. That's what I want to do. I want to apply these ideas because they were not being applied anywhere in the world. And I was just lucky to be at the University of Chicago. Chess had little to do with it.
Really? So, because I always feel like there's some sort of, like, people always find a connection with their hobby, with their real life. But did your sort of like the idea of like being one step ahead, keeping track of people's moves, did that help you? Because you became what was called an index fund pioneer for creating like the first passively managed index fund. So none of your chess sort of acumen played into that?
Well, it might have. I'm just not explicitly aware of it.
Oh,
But
okay.
I guess I always was thinking of, how is the opposition going to respond? And we did have to think about it.
Okay, so you become incredibly successful with this fund, and to not be too crass, but you made a lot of money. And one of the things that you've used with that money is to build this St. Louis chess club. And from the videos of it, it's been covered online. It looks spectacular. I have not been in it. So it seems like that cost a lot of the money that you made in your career. Is that correct?
Well, it didn't cost a lot of the money that I made. It did cost a lot of money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but and it is spectacular. They've done an amazing job with it. And we're expanding it now. We're going from 6,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. So you can, only imagine how great it's going to be. But it's become a beehive of activity here in St. Louis. And it is fair to call it the number one chess club in the nation, if not the world. And we do attract now in St. Louis at any point in time about 25 to 30 grandmasters,
Wow.
which is probably more grandmasters than any city in the world holds other than St. Louis.
Incredible. And so let's talk about St. Louis here. Before Rex came around, what was the chess like? What was chess like in St. Louis? Was it just like people, just average players playing? Were there tournaments? What was it like before and after the St. Louis Chess Club?
Well, it was kind of dormant, but what I learned is there was actually a very strong history of chess in St. Louis going back into the 1800s. In 1886, some of the games of the first official World Championship match were played in St. Louis. They were played in New York, St. Louis, and New Orleans. It was Wilhelm Steinitz against Ferdinand Zukertort, and that was in 1886.
Wow. You weren't around for that, right? Because you sound like you're very well versed in it.
Oh, I remember it well.
All right. So when you start to build the St. Louis Chess Club, what's the reaction like in the city? Where they're like, huh? Chess? Wait, this is the Budweiser's Cardinals town. What are you doing building the chess club here?
Yeah, we got plenty of recognition early, and I have to compliment my fellow citizens. They said they honor me. They threw some dinner. They gave me some medal or plaque or something, and they said, this is for what you've done in chess. And I thought this was pretty amazing that they would even notice and do something like that. But it's attracted quite a bit of attention worldwide now. So I think there's probably more people who know about the St. Louis Chess Club in Moscow than there is in St. Louis.
Now that the sport is growing and the building is growing, essentially, what's the future of the St. Louis Chess Club? I mean, are there grander heights that you can aim for here, or is it? I mean, because it's pretty amazing what you've built there, but what else can come of it?
Well, that's a very good and difficult question. The only thing left physically would be a world championship match, but we have grown incredibly fast, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. Everything we tried, and this was all due to the staff. We have a tremendous staff. Every idea we tried worked. We never made any mistakes. New tournaments, ideas for new tournaments, it attracted the best players in the world. We routinely have the top 10 or 15 grandmasters in the world here for some event.
And you talked about World Championship. Is that something that's in the cards that you guys can pull off?
Yes, we can pull it off, but it really depends on FIDE, the International Chess Federation, and how much money they're going to ask for. So we're probably a year or two at least from that.
Oh, I see. So it works very much like the Olympics and Olympic committees around, cities and countries around the world where they have to bid for the games. Is it similar to that?
That's right. That's right. FIDE owns the World Championship match, and so you have to bid with them to see if you want it in your location. And it's pretty expensive.
Have other U.S. cities hosted it in the past?
No, except for New York in 1886 and St. Louis and New Orleans.
Wow.
That was the only time, I think.
Why do you think that we haven't seen it since, the previous couple centuries? Why do you think it hasn't happened here?
I don't know. That's a good question because chess was very popular before World War II in the United States. It was probably the most popular locus for chess activities. And then it just sort of died off. Why? I don't know. Now Europe and Russia and all of those places are the hotbeds of chess. And they have chess everywhere, all over there. And the only place that rivals them is St. Louis.
And in terms of modern chess, you're not just playing chess on a board in a park or at the St. Louis location there. You're also very active playing online, and this is sort of one of the reasons chess has grown over the last 10, 20 years is this online chess community. So what can you tell me about that, the digital world of chess?
Well, it makes it much easier to play, and you're right. I do play every day. At any point in time, I have about 15 games going, wow. And that's probably true of a lot of other people, too. But things like the Queen's Gambit really help that. I mean, our interest in internet chess just soared, almost doubled or tripled as a result of that movie. And I think it'll stay there as well.
Is there any differences inherently in playing chess online as opposed to playing in person? Or is there just basically no difference other than the fact that you can't smell the other person's breath or something?
There's really no difference. It's set up so that if you make a move, you've made it. Once you take and lift your cursor off the piece, it's moved. And it's the same in over-the-board chess. Once you move the piece, it's moved.
And in terms of your playing style, you talked about growing up and your uncle teaching you. Is this one of these games where you can get better over time? Do you plateau? How does that work? Because I feel like when you hear about these chess masters, they're like teenage prodigies and these people who just came out of the womb playing chess. But can you become a better chess player over time? Have you?
I have, yeah, and most people improve. If they go to clubs, they play in tournaments, they get a lot better over time. Now, they don't become wunderkinds like the people you referred to.
Yeah.
We do have those kids who reach enormous heights very quickly, and we have several here in St. Louis, there are several around the world, of kids that became grandmasters by the time they were 13 or 14. But that's really a fluke. You're talking about 1 out of several billion.
Wow. And not that this is something I need to concern myself with, but how does one become a grandmaster? What is the actual steps you have to take to achieve that?
You have to play in what is called a norm tournament, and you have to play in 3 of them, and you have to achieve a certain rating in each of those tournaments. And each of those tournaments has to have a certain number of international players as well, and a certain number of grandmasters. And then you have to perform at what's called a 2500 level, which is a performance score that you have to get, and you have to do that 3 times, and then you're a grandmaster.
Interesting.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, it doesn't. I was going to say it doesn't sound like something I should have to worry to aspire to. But have you ever become a grandmaster?
No, I haven't, and I doubt that I'm certain that I never will.
Aw, come on, Rex! Don't sell yourself short. You still got time.
Yeah, I have time, but there's not enough time in the world for me.
Are there a lot of those masters, like hundreds or thousands?
I think there's probably 1,000 plus, maybe 1,200 that are somewhat active around the world. But if you do the math, you will quickly realize that it's much harder to become a grandmaster than it is to become a Major League Baseball player.
It sounds like it. Have you ever played a grandmaster one-on-one, and did they just wipe the floor with you?
Yes to both of those.
What was that first experience like playing a grandmaster?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Well, I probably played my instructor first, Jennifer Shahadi. She was twice U.S. Women's Champion. Now we finish every lesson by playing a couple of games of speed chess, which is 5-minute chess. And I just got a draw the other day, which is the first in 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Wow. And can you, now looking back at that draw you got in that speed chess, was there something you could pinpoint that you did right that you're like, oh man, I finally did this? Or was it just one of those things where it just happened and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that?
Well, I didn't make any big mistakes. That's what happened.
Oh. And so can you take that step, that like big step, I guess, can you take that and be like, okay, cool, Jennifer, next time I got you. I'm forget ties, I'm going to beat you.
Well, yeah, I can do that, but they can also send me to a psychiatrist.
Rex, talk to me about the mindset of chess, because it seems like, I joke earlier that I don't feel like I'm smart enough to play it, and you say you don't have to be a genius to play it, but talk to me about the mindset of these grandmasters and maybe the people at chess who are really, really good at it. What separates them, and I'm not talking about skill level, but from a mindset level, what separates them from the rest, you think?
I think they think very broadly. They have a capacity to study an immense amount of material and to remember all of it. This is the one thing they have. They have phenomenal memories. These people have to study and learn and memorize a bunch of openings, different approaches to chess, and they can do it in the hundreds. You and I can do it in the teens, but they're way out there, what they can absorb, what they can understand. So when they go to the board, they're just filled with thousands of possible variations for any situation. So you're really up against a giant when you're playing them.
So if these masters all have these thousands of moves you talk about that they've memorized, what separates them on game day? Like, how does one master win and how does one master lose?
Well, it's going to be their basic skill level, because they'll both get out of the opening, which is the first 10 or 15 moves. They'll be almost certainly even in the position. And then from there, they're playing on their own. They're out of the opening books, and it's just a question of how much analysis and how well they can do it.
When you talk about studying, you say you study, these folks study. As someone who's not a big fan of school and looking back at it like, oh my God, I don't even know how I got through it. What do you mean by studying? What are you and what are these grandmasters studying?
Well, they can be studying openings to different games. There's hundreds of different opening systems. And, Bobby Fischer studied a lot. In fact, Boris Spassky, when they asked him, they said, what's the problem with playing Fischer? He said, well, it's simple. He said, I study chess every day. Bobby studies it every minute. He dropped out of school as a sophomore. He said, they can't teach me anything about chess. But he was quite a student. He studied everything. He taught himself 10 languages so he could read everything in chess. So he was quite studious in the areas that he was interested in.
And you mentioned Bobby Fischer because he was a grandmaster, obviously, multiple world champion. And from what I understand, I think, was he the last U.S. champion, or U.S., American to win the world championships, or have there been others?
No, he was the last one.
And why is that? Why do you think the U.S. has had, I guess the word trouble, but why have they not been able to keep up with the rest of the world?
Well, remember, the rest of the world's a lot bigger than the United States.
That I'm aware of. Thank you very much, Rex. Thanks.
Yeah. So they have a much bigger pool of players to draw from. And the top grandmaster level, I don't think there was anybody at his level, but right around that area, there are very few to choose from. And they come from all over the world. In the past, it was primarily Russia, or the former Soviet Union. But with the collapse of the Soviet Union, they now come from a lot of different countries that were former members of the Soviet Union.
I'm just curious. So now that we have this newfound love of chess, whether it's online or whether it's because you watch a show on Netflix, do you see in your lifetime, Rex, there being an American that becomes a world champion?
I do. We have several that are contenders, but it's very, very difficult. In 2018, there was a world championship match in London between Magnus Carlsen, the reigning world champion from Norway, and Fabiano Caruana from the United States, who happens to now live in St. Louis.
All right, awesome. And so, obviously you love chess. You've put your money where your mouth is when it comes to chess. Why chess? Rex, it seems like you could do a lot of things. Why has this game been such a big part of your life?
Well, it's sort of magnetic in its attraction, but also when I moved back here and retired, I said we should set up a chess club in this part of town because we'll be close to the inner city public schools, and I want to get to those kids. And that was very successful. And we probably interact with 75,000 children a year
Wow.
through chess. We're in, I don't know how many schools, maybe 100 schools throughout the city where we go to the school and teach every week. And the kids really sign up for it. They love it. They love school. On the days there is chess, I think it has enormous cognitive benefits for them. Teaches them to think, to reason, to study. Teaches them they can learn a lot from books and from studying. So there's a huge benefit there. I'm intrigued with it for both those reasons. It has enormous social benefit, and it's fun to play. It's just intriguing in and of itself.
And it's funny because you've been playing chess for, I mean, my math's not great either, but over 60 years. Did you ever get bored of it? Like, I can't even imagine doing anything for 60 plus years. Like, I can't fathom being with my wife for 60 years. So why has chess grabbed you that you've been able to play it for so long, and to this day you're playing dozens and dozens of matches every day?
Yeah, well, your wife told me about that. She said she feels the same way.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Rex.
But I don't know. It's just magnetic in its attraction, and I don't get bored with it. There are some days I can't study it as intently as I should, and there are certainly many, many days, most days, in fact, that I don't study it the way a top grandmaster does. These guys will study 6 to 8 hours every day. That's truly amazing.
Wow. I kind of teased you at the beginning about the Chess Hall of Fame, and it took you so long, but what does it mean to be inducted into the U.S. Hall of Fame of chess? Because, as someone who has made it your life passion, essentially, to be recognized for a passion, I think if anyone were to be asked anything, what would you want to be recognized for? It's for like your passion, whether it's your family or whether it's some sort of calling you've had. But what is it like to be inducted into a place and be in these hallowed halls for something that you just love? It's not work. It's not something that you have to do. But it's something you internalize that you must do. So how does that all feel?
It's amazing. I feel like the selectors have lost their mind. But a few years back, I was inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame for chess. I sat next to some Cardinal baseball players who were being inducted the same day, namely Jim Edmonds, a former center fielder. And it was an amazing feeling. But they did it for performers at the professional level, the college level, the high school level. They went down and they got the top performers at every level every year, so it makes a lot of sense. This here, it's a little strange because I really am like a fish out of water in this case. These people that are inducted are the top players in the world. There are a few exceptions. Myself and my wife are two of those. There aren't many, so it feels pretty good. It's quite an honor, but I realize now I just have to do more.
Wow. They talk to like CEOs and founders of companies about their legacy, the legacy of their founders. And it's almost unquantifiable what your legacy will be to chess, especially in the Missouri, St. Louis area. But do you ever think about that? Not that I'm putting you in the ground, Rex, or anything like that, but do you ever think about like, man, when I'm gone, I've left a footprint here. I've left behind a legacy that I could be so proud of, that I have no regrets over all the money I've spent, all the tears and the sweat that I put into it.
I do think about it sometimes, and we are putting in enough that it will continue well past me.
And what does that mean, Rex? Like, I mean, I know you and your wife have sort of done this in tandem, but do you have like folks that you're like, okay, cool, this is going to be my predecessor. This is my Steve Jobs to my Tim Cook. Do you have that someone who you feel can fill your role for the next 20, 30 years?
I think the current staff at both the St. Louis Chess Club and the World Chess Hall of Fame could walk right in and run this thing perfectly, probably better than me. In fact, I'm letting them run most of it now. That's why it works so well.
Oh, that's awesome. And so What's next, Rex? I mean, I don't think you have any more Hall of Fames you could be inducted into. What do you see? What do you see for your foreseeable future? Do you want to just keep doing what you're doing? Is there anything you want to reach out to? You want to go take on another Grandmaster? What do you want to do, Rex?
Well, no, the other thing is I devote myself to a lot of public policy, which invariably means politics.
Okay.
I'm determined to change some of the features of Missouri's laws. Like, I want to get rid of our income tax, our state income tax. State income taxes are just stupid. There's no other way to say it. There are 9 states that have no state income tax, and they're growing like weeds. Then there are other states, like the one you're in, that have huge taxes,
Yeah.
and they suffer as a consequence. Another big public policy venture is school choice. I want to get school choice for every kid everywhere in the country. And the opposition is ferocious. It's also, I think, horribly unjust that we deprive poor kids of choices in schools and deprive their parents, force them to go to school based on their address. That's just incredibly bad. So school choice and tax policy are the big 2 things, both at the state level and the city level.
Awesome.
And I spend a lot of time on that, too, and a lot of money.
I bet you do, Rex. I don't know if you saw the new quarterback at Clemson. He says his favorite NFL team is in any state with no income tax, which is so prescient of like, you know what? I don't care what football team I play for. I just want to play for one that doesn't have state income tax, which is funny that you say that, Rex, because that's the one time, like, you never hear about that argument until when it comes to sports, because all of a sudden you have these multi-million-dollar athletes who are like, yeah, I want to go play in Florida. I want to go play in Texas where they don't have state income tax.
Or Tennessee, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. The dumbest state to play for, the 2 dumbest states, would be New York and California, which have enormous taxes.
Yeah. Why do you think state income tax is still a thing?
It's just so addictive for politicians. They can never get enough money. And an income tax is a good way to get it because it's hard for the opposition to rally support to fight against it. Because, they can say, hey, what about our kids? What about police? Don't you want those things? And those are pretty easy arguments for them to make, and they're hard arguments for the other side to gainsay.
Okay. Well, Rex, I'll be honest with you. I feel smarter after speaking with you for 30 minutes, talking about chess, talking about politics, taxes, and stuff like that. So I guess thank you for your knowledge bombs. I really appreciate it, and thank you very much for your time. This has really been quite an honor for me to speak with you, but congratulations on all your success. Congratulations on getting into the Chess Hall of Fame, and congratulations for the amazing work you're doing with the St. Louis Chess Club. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. All you have to do now is visit St. Louis.
I'd love to visit St. Louis, but here I'm going to bring up my wife one more time, Rex. She's a Mets fan, and years ago when she was...
my Lord.
Yeah, I know. Let's not get into that. Years ago, when the Mets and Cardinals had that pretty good rivalry going, she went into St. Louis with a bunch of her girlfriends, watched some games, and and this is true, Rex, the St. Louis fans, not very nice to the Mets fans.
It was pretty bitter back then, and they behaved very atypically. Typically, you come to Busch Stadium in St. Louis, and it's like going to the opera. People are quiet, they're polite. It's always a pleasant experience, and I'm sorry she didn't have a typical experience.
Well, awesome, Rex. The next time I make my way to St. Louis, I'll check out the big arch you have there, and obviously I'll come by and check out the St. Louis Chess Club. Thank you, sir, for your time, and congratulations once again for your induction in the U.S. Chess Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for this edition of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.